everyone, Jamie Trella here, your favorite CPA and financial literacy coach, and today we're going to be continuing talking about S Corps. So for the last several weeks on this channel, I've had a lot of content around S corporations, and that's because we're kind of sitting at that time of year where this might be on people's minds. So this video is for you if you are considering becoming an S Corp, if you are considering making an S Corp election this year. We're going to talk specifically about the deadlines to make the S Corp election and what you can do if you accidentally miss the deadline, but you still want to be an S Corp for the current year. I'm recording this in 2023, but this is true for future years as well. So if you're watching this in 2024 or beyond, this is still for you. Now, if you're not sure if you want to become an S Corp, go watch some of my previous videos on this channel. There are lots of things that I've talked about when it comes to how to calculate potential tax savings, how to understand what your reasonable compensation should be. You want to go through that process before you actually get to the point of making the election. But if you know that you want to become an S Corp for this year, then I'm going to walk you through what some of those important things to know about the deadline are. Now, if you're a brand new company, then you want to be electing this within the first 2 months and 15 days of becoming a company. Now, importantly, before you go and elect S Corp, you are going to go ahead and need to become an LLC if you are not one already. Now, this video is specifically speaking towards those who are LLCs that want to become S Corps. I'm not going to get into C Corps that want to elect to be taxed as an S Corp. That's also a possibility, but typically I'm usually talking to my small businesses that know that now is the time for them to become an S Corp because it can save them money on payroll taxes. So if that's you, what you are going to want to do is file Form 2553. Again, you have to already have your LLC to be able to do this. And sometimes when you actually go to create your LLC, you might be able to file the form at the same time, depending on how you're actually doing it. But it's really an easy form to file by yourself as well. The only things that you need to make sure of is that you are actually filling this out accurately and that it aligns with your LLC documents. So you want to put the correct EIN in there, the correct business formation date that your LLC was created, and your correct business name. Those are some of the things that can be an issue where you may not get your S Corp election approved because of some of the way that you entered it and you didn't enter it exactly how it shows up on those LLC documents and on your EIN. So here is Form 2553. Like I said, you're just going to put your information about your entity on here, and you're going to determine what date you are electing S Corp. And in general, that's usually going to be the first day of the year you're in. Now, in some cases, you may be able to go and do a late election for up to 3 years past, but in this case, most of the time it's going to be in the current year. And the easiest way to do this is to be able to make this election by March 15th. That is technically the deadline for electing S Corp if you want it to be retroactive back to January 1st of the given year. Now, you do want to be an S Corp for a full year. You don't want to be an S Corp. You don't want that to start in the middle of the year. You always want to start at a new year, especially you want it to align with your fiscal year. Most people use a calendar year. So for most businesses, that means starting being an S Corp as of January 1st. So if you're making this election, let's say in March, maybe it's March 10th, let's say, of 2023, then for the date you want it to be effective as of, that would be January 1st, 2023. Now, if you miss that March 15th deadline and you do not file this Form 2553 by then, maybe you're watching this video in April or May and realizing, oh no, I wanted to be an S Corp this year. I didn't realize that I needed to file this form. You can still file it and you can do what is called a late election. So a late election is something that you can do, but you are going to have to provide a little bit more information. And that's going to go into this section I on your Form 2553. So basically you're going to say, yes, this is being filed late. I declare that I had a reasonable cause for why this is being filed late. Now, what qualifies as a reasonable cause? Really, there's a good amount of latitude here. So you can even say something like, I meant to file this, I didn't recognize that there was a deadline, or I thought my accountant had filed it, or maybe there was a death in your family and you missed the deadline. Whatever it is, right? If you have been functioning as an S corporation and you thought that maybe it was already filed, perhaps, there are a lot of different things that you could put in here to be able to justify why you didn't elect by March 15th. So if it is after that point, don't let that scare you away. You don't have to say, oh, well, I guess I missed the deadline, I gotta wait till next year. If being an S Corp is right for you, you still can attempt to make this election. You're just gonna have to put a little bit more information in. But obviously, it's the most straightforward if you can go ahead and do this by March 15th, and you're gonna have the best bet at it getting accepted by the IRS if you file by March 15th. Now, important to say that if you don't run on a calendar year, if you have a different fiscal year, now you would know that if that's the case for you, then instead of it being March 15th, it's going to be 2 months and 15 days after the end of your specific fiscal year. So that's just an important caveat for anybody who is not running their business on a typical calendar year, which if you aren't sure, then you are running it on a calendar year. Now, one additional caveat I think is important to make here is if you are a brand new business and you want to go ahead and elect S Corp, which I don't always recommend because sometimes it's good to just get your feet under you for that first year in business before deciding whether or not S Corp makes sense for you. But if you know that it will, then you're going to want to make that election within 2 months and 15 days of your formation. So that's typically going to be your LLC formation. If you file that form within 2 months and 15 days of that formation, then your first year in business is going to be filed as an S corporation. Now, I will warn you, it can take a little bit of time for the IRS to get back to you. So oftentimes it can make sense to just go ahead and be operating as an S Corp, especially if you know that you filed that form correctly and put all the correct information on it as far as your business name and your EIN, then you can usually just start functioning as an S corporation. You don't have to wait to get that election back because it can take several months, and it can sometimes be better to go ahead and get yourself on owner payroll and get all of that up and running so that it is ready to go. Now, importantly, there are some other deadlines as an S Corp that you want to be aware of. The biggest one being the tax deadline for an S Corp. Now, as an S corporation, it's going to be different than when you were an LLC or a sole proprietor. You are going to have an extra tax filing you want to be aware of because it will sneak up on you. So March 15th of the following year, so if you become an S Corp for the year 2023, let's say, then you're going to be filing your first 1120S, which is the corporate tax filing for an S Corp. That is going to need to be filed by March 15th of the next year. So in 2024, you will file that by March 15th. You won't pay any taxes at that time. It is a pass-through entity just like an LLC, but you do have a separate tax filing for your S Corp specifically. That tax filing is then going to help you generate your K1s from your business, which essentially is kind of, your share of the profit that you're going to then claim when you do your 1040, your regular individual income tax by April 15th. Now, there are, again, ways to get this extended. You can extend an 1120S until September, but then you're probably also going to need to extend your regular 1040 until October if you do that. So that's why it's important that the 1120S comes first, because you have to use what the 1120S generates for filing your individual income tax return. So it kind of has to be done in that order in order to be able to file your taxes appropriately and pay the right amount. Now, from time to time, these deadlines will move based on what days they fall on. Typically, a weekend is not going to be a deadline for a tax filing. It's going to be the next business day that is not a holiday after that weekend. So sometimes you get a little bit of flex there. And occasionally the IRS might move some deadlines, kind of like they did when we had the COVID-19 pandemic, where they moved some of those deadlines, but that's pretty rare, and I would not expect that to be the case. So you just want to have it penciled into your mind that March 15th and April 15th are going to be those tax filing deadlines. And that's true for 2022, 2023, 2024, and beyond. Now, if you are looking for how to make this election, this is something that you can do by yourself. You don't have to pay a firm to do this. You can send in Form 2553 yourself. You do have to actually send it in a stamped envelope. There is no way currently, as of the recording of this video in 2023, to e-file this. Go figure. But you will be able to do that on your own if you want to. Now, if you are highly considering electing S Corp, I very much recommend grabbing my absolutely free S Corp success checklist. You can snag that by going to jamietrell.com/S Corp checklist or clicking the button that's on your screen right now. I hope this was helpful for you. Go check out all my other resources on being an S Corporation, and I'll see you next time.